Now today we will learn about the Kalabhras. So the Sangam age spanned from 300 BC to 300 AD. What happened after 300 AD? The Kalabhras happened. Okay, the Kalabhra kingdom emerged as the powerful kingdom in between 3rd to 6th century BC. They conquered the territories of the Cheras, the Cholas, as well as the Pandyas in South India. As you can see, this is the green area is the area that not the entirety, but almost all of it were under the control of the Kalabhras. So they ruled for 300 years. Only after the Kalabhras came the Pallavas, and then the revival of the Pandyas. The Pandyas declined here, right, from 300 BC to 300 century AD. So this is known as the early Pandyas, and then the Pandyas will revive here in 6th to 14th century. And even the Cholas, they decline in 3rd century CE or AD, and they will also be revived here in Imperial Cholas. Okay, and yeah, that's it. Now we will start with the Kalabhras. Now, who were the Kalabhras? The Kalabhras were a ruling group who came to power in parts of the Tamil country. The actual origin of the Kalabhras is unknown. Like I said, there's very little evidence about the Kalabhras. The only thing we know about the Kalabhras is that they defeated the Cholas, Cheras, and Pandyas to establish a kingdom in the southern part of India, which is this. Okay, this is the territory that the Kalabhras had control of. We have the Western Ghats, we have the Bay of Bengal, we have the Indian Ocean. This is the entirety of the Tamil country, which the Kalabhras controlled. Okay, every time there's a distinction, this is a little up and this is a little down. Know that the Kalabhras did not rule the entire Tamil kingdom at one time. Sometimes they would win, sometimes they would lose. So, but by and large, this is how the territory looked like. The period from 3rd to 6th century CE, Common Era, the region of rule mainly in the Tamil region of the Cholas, the Cheras, and the Pandyas, and maybe their control may have extended over large parts of the Tamil country, but we do not have too many evidence. We do not even know if they controlled the entirety of the Cholas, Cheras, and Pandyas. All you need to know is that the Kalabhras came right after the Cholas, Cheras, and Pandyas, and they conquered the territories of these 3 Tamil kingdoms. Okay, this is it. They established political order. After they displaced the established political order of the Sangam age, the Chera, Chola, and Pandya kingdom. Okay, so this period is known as the Kalabhra interregnum. Why? It represents the interruption. It represents, this is a very important point, it represents the interruption between the early Tamil kingdoms of Chola, Chera, Pandyas and the emergence of the Pallavas and the revival of the Pandyas. Okay? And the revival, this is the intermediary period between the 3 Tamil kingdoms and the revival of the Pallavas and the Pandyas. Now, why is it called a dark age? Like I mentioned in the beginning, their period is sometimes called a dark age of Tamil history. This does not mean no development took place. It indicates scarcity of evidence. Okay, it indicates scarcity of evidence. Who knows? Since the questions in the preliminary exam will be statement based, they might give you the statement. The Kalabhra interregnum was a period of dark age because there was no development during that period compared to the period of Cholas, Cheras, and Pandyas. The answer is no. Okay, it's a wrong statement. It is called a dark age because it indicates scarcity of evidence. For the Sangam age, we have the Sangam literature, whereas for the Kalabhras, we have mentions about them in the later dynasties mostly. Okay. Now, the period of the Kalabhras saw the rise of Jainism and Buddhism. Okay, almost all of them did not patronize Hinduism. This is another very important distinction. The religion that they followed was Jainism and Buddhism. Monasteries were called palis. Okay, what were the monasteries called during the reign of the Kushanas? Chaityas were called prayer halls, and viharas will call monasteries. But here, monasteries will call palis. Okay, in North India it's called viharas, whereas in South India it is called palis. Okay, that's another important point. And it gave greater support to non-Brahmanical traditions. Brahmanical means Hinduism. So it gave support to non-Brahmanical traditions. It gave support to Jainism and Buddhism. Okay? It gave support to Jainism and Buddhism. The growth of Tamil literature. Now, it was not exactly during the period of the Kalabhras, but what we do know is that if you were to be asked in examination, I've done very good research on that. Silapati Karam and Mani Mekalai, they did not form part of the Sangam literature. What were the two literary structure that I talked about in my previous class when it comes to Sangam literature? We talked about the 10 ideals and the 8 anthologies, Etu Tokoy. Right? So these were the only two collection of books that belong to the Sangam age. Now Silapati Karam and Mani Mekalai. Okay, it's not concrete evidence that it existed outside of Sangam age, but we can place Silapati Karam and Mani Mekalai in towards the end of the Sangam period. Okay, late Sangam period, and Sivaka, Sindamani, Valayapati and Kundalagesi can be placed in the post-Sangam period. And in the Sangam period, we can place the 8 anthologies and the 10 ideals. Okay? Now, these were the 5 great Tamil epics that were developed during the period of the Kalabhras. A very important point, not all the above epics belong to the Sangam age. They were composed in the post-Sangam period, some much later, from early centuries up to the medieval period. Okay. Now, this is clear. The religion, the literature, and the society greater support to non-Brahmanical traditions. This is all you need to know about the Kalabhras. Now, end of rule. What happened after the end of the Kalabhras? We saw the Sangam age, and then the Kalabhras came, and the Kalabhras declined, and they were overthrown by 2 important kingdoms, the Pandyas and the rise of Pallavas. Now, the Chola, Chera and Pandyas, the 3 early Tamil kingdoms, they declined, and the first kingdom to be revived was the Pandya, which is also known as the Kingdom of Pearls, right? They were bordered with Sri Lanka, and sometimes they would conquer Sri Lanka, and this is where they harvested pearls and sold it off. Okay, sold them off. Now we saw the rise of the Pallavas as well as the Pandyas. We will first deal with the Pandya, Gadungon, which revived the Pandya kingdom, and the Pallavas to emerge as a major power after the end of the Kalabhar revolt. The important rulers are Mahendra Varman I, Narasimha Varman I, Nandi Varman II, and so forth. Okay. Now, if you look at the Pallavas, the Tamil region that they conquered was that they resided in was Tondai Mandalam. This is a very important Tamil region. Okay, Tondai Mandalam. The Pallavas consolidated their authority in the northern Tamil region known as Tondai Mandalam. We will first deal with the Pandyas, and then we will move to the Pallavas. Now, this is the revival of the Pandyas after their decline in the 3rd century CE. Okay, they were revived in the 6th century CE by Katunggon, who is considered to be the founder of the revived Panda dynasty. He overthrew the Kalabhras and re-established Pandya rule in the Pandya country. Now, this is who he is known as. He is remembered in the Tamil tradition as the hero who restored the scepter of the Pandyas. Always know that, okay? It's another very important point for your examination. The hero who restored the scepter of the Pandyas is Katunggon. Okay? Now, they established their center, capital at Madurai. It was the same as the early Sangam kingdoms, the Chola, Chera, and Pandyas, when they were initially stationed in the between 3rd century BC to 3rd century AD. Their capital was also Madurai. Here as well, their capital is Madurai, their center of power. Okay. So, what is their place in the chronology? The Pandya revival marks the end of the Kalabhra and the Regnum. Okay. So, this is the overall Pandya revival in a nutshell. In the 6th century CE, under Katunggon, the Pandyas revived their rule by overthrowing the Kalabhras. They established Madurai as the capital and began a new era of political stability and cultural growth in the south. Now, these were the kings. The only king that you need to know is Katunggon. The rest are not too important for your examination. Okay, for the Pandya revival, this is the most important king. The rest you can go through it. The Pandyas are known from inscription and sources. Let's go to inscription and sources. The Pandyas are known from inscriptions, copper plate inscriptions, coins, and literary references. Now, for almost every kingdom, it's the same. Okay, important inscriptions: Velvikuti plates, China Manur plates, and Siva Kanga plates. These are the 3 important plates, copper plate inscriptions that help us understand the history of the Pandya, the revived Pandya. So these are the 3 plates that you need to memorize. And when it comes to the administration and economy, it was a very well organized administration with taxes, land grants, and local assemblies. Agriculture was the main occupation, and we will see the maritime trade. I will not be explaining all this, okay, because we already explained that in the Sangam age. The Sangam age, whatever maritime trade they had with Central Asia, whatever maritime trade they had with Rome, I've explained that, and the different ways in which they can reach Rome. First, if they were to use the sea route, they would reach Oman. From Oman, they would travel by camel and reach the River Nile. From River Nile, they would take a ship and reach all the way to Alexandria. And from Alexandria, they would take another ship and they would reach Rome. Okay, they could also use the Central Asia pathway from the upper side of the Indian map, and they could travel by camel all the way till again Oman, and then from Oman to Alexandria directly or via ship using River Nile, and then reach Rome. Okay, there were 2 pathways, one by sea route and another by land route using camels. I've already explained about how they established the trade. I've also explained to you about Southeast Asia, the countries such as Indonesia where they traded, and the different spices that they traded. It's the same. Okay, we're talking about the same Pandya kingdom except that they revived. But the trade, economy, everything is similar, and then the terms, what were the chiefs known as, all these were similar. Okay? If there's any change, I will explain it to you, but it's the same as the former Pandya. Now, another very important point that you need to know is that they had conflict with Pallavas. I've told you that after the end of the Kalabhra rule, emerged 2 kingdoms, the Pandyas, and alongside Pandyas were the Pallavas. Okay? So, as you can see, the Pallava kingdom, it's a little above Pandya kingdom, and this is the Pandya kingdom. So, there was a tussle between the 2 kingdoms. They had conflicts with the Pallavas. That was the background. And also the Cholas would also emerge in around 8 to 9 centuries. They also had conflicts with the Cholas. We will learn about the Pallavas as well as the Cholas later on. Okay? Now, again, they declined during, so the Pandya revival, if you can see, 6th to 9th century, from 6th century all the way up till 9th century, and then they declined, okay? And then they declined. So as you can see, Chatila Parantaka, 8th to 9th century. From 6th all the way up till 9th century AD, the Pandyas, they continued to rule, and in the 9th century, they began to decline. Why? Because of the emergence of the Cholas, which we will learn about later on. Okay? So again they declined. Again they revived in the 13th to 14th centuries. Now we should actually not be studying the 13th and 14th centuries because it's a little way too ahead, but if I can, explain the Pandya kingdom later on after we study other kingdoms, it would be inconvenient. So I've combined both the 6th to 9th century as well as the 13th to 14th century Pandya revival. Okay, this is known as the imperial phase, and three kings that we need to know: Jatavarman, Mahavarman, and the rest, Vikram Pandyan and Veera Pandyan. So these two kings are important. The rest are not important. Now, if you can see, after the Pandyas decline in the 9th century, they again revived in the 13th to 14th centuries. You can see Jatavarman, 1251 to 1268. Okay, he ruled for almost 19 years. He was the most powerful of the later Pandyas. He conquered Sri Lanka and parts of Kerala. Okay, his rule marks the real beginning of the Pandya imperial phase. And there was another king of the imperial phase, Mahavarman. Okay, he further expanded the kingdom, of course, but he defeated the Hoysala ruler Someshwara and some remnants of the Cholas. Okay, that's another important point that you need to know. And the rest of the kings, no need. Now, this imperial phase of the Pandyas, they had frequent wars with the Cholas and the Hoysalas. Okay, so back then, between 6th to 9th centuries, they had fierce battles with the Pallavas and the Cholas. But during the 13th to 14th centuries, the Hoysalas were one of the most powerful kingdoms in South India. Okay, so they had frequent wars with the Cholas and the Hoysalas. So it's a continuous cycle of wars over wars over wars over wars over wars. Okay, the entire Indian history, which is the same as world history. War was what characterized men in their nature. Madurai was the heart of the Pandya Empire. It's the same, right? During the early Tamil kingdom of 3rd century BC all the way up till 3rd century AD, which was the kingdom of the Pandya, which was the capital of the Pandyas, Madurai. This is why there's always this term Pandyas of Madurai, Pandyas of Madurai. Every time you mention Pandyas, it's easier to mention Pandyas of Madurai. It's more convenient. It's for long term. It's more beneficial. I will never forget Pandyas of Madurai, Pandyas of Madurai, the Chalukyas of Patami, Chalukyas of Vengi, Chalukyas of Kalyani, and so forth. These are the terms that I study. I study this way. So Pandyas, Madurai, Kingdom of Pearls. Okay, these are two important facts about the Pandyas. So again, in the imperial phase, their main stronghold was Madurai. Right? Their main stronghold was Madurai. At its peak, the Pandya kingdom extended over the Tamil country, the Kerala, parts of Karnataka, and Sri Lanka. Okay? Very important point. It's a very large kingdom. It's a very, very large kingdom. At its peak. Now, Madurai was the heart of the Pandya kingdom. They had maritime connections. Again, another addition would be Sri Lanka. The rest I've explained: Southeast Asia, China, the Arab world. Okay, these were the famous ports: Kayalpatinam, Quilon, Kurkai, Nagapatinam. And these are the 4 ports that you can, because these ports are very important in South India, so I would encourage you guys to memorize these famous ports as well. Now, this is the decline and legacy. So as we can see, the Pandyas had the same feature when it comes to economy, when it comes to trade, and we have studied about the king, the important king, Jatavarman, and he also conquered Sri Lanka. And we also talked about the famous ports, and these are the maritime connections that I've already explained in my previous classes about the Pandyas. Now we will talk about the decline of the Pandyas, okay, in 14th century with the later kings. The Jatavarman was a very important, powerful king. Mahavarman was a powerful king, but their successors were weak, and eventually the Pandyas declined. And maybe not even because they were weak, but because the Muslim kingdoms that arose during that time, maybe they were way, way too powerful, right? That's what I think. No one could have no one could have escaped the wrath of the Muslims, the wrath of the Islamic kingdoms during that time. We had the Delhi Sultanate, we had the Mughals. They were very, very powerful. Okay, the succession disputes. Frequent conflicts happened among Pandya princes, which possibly weakened the kingdom. But as you can see, the Delhi Sultanate under Alauddin Khilji. Okay, the five dynasties of the Delhi Sultanate. We have the Mamluk, Khilji, Said, Mamluk, Khilji, Tughlaq, Said, and Lodi. Okay, so Khilji would be the second. We have the Mamluk dynasty, we have the Khilji dynasty, we have the Tughlaq dynasty, we have the Said dynasty, and we have the Lodi dynasty. And the second dynasty of the Delhi Sultanate, we will learn about the Delhi Sultanate. Okay, all you need to know is that it's an Islamic kingdom, and it turned its attention to the wealthy south. Malik Kafur, okay, Malik Kafur led expeditions deep into the Pandya country, and he invaded the Pandya kingdom. He plundered Madurai, the capital of the Pandyas, and carried away immense wealth. The Pandya power was badly shattered, and there was loss of territories and decline in revenue and resources. Okay, so what happened after the decline? The Madurai Sultanate, right? This is the Madurai Sultanate. A Muslim rule known as Madurai Sultanate was established. It was, however, short-lived and could not consolidate its power. Why was it short-lived? Because the stronghold of the Muslim, the Islamic kingdom, the Delhi Sultanate, the word Delhi Sultanate itself, North India, right? So it was a little too far. It was a little too far for the Delhi Sultanate to control the southern part of India. It was a little too far. And what happened was that after the Delhi Sultanate came, Malik Kafur's campaign ended, and he conquered the territories. He plundered the wealth, okay, held the women into captivity, and took away their wealth, everything. After everything happened, the Madurai Sultanate, the Pandya kingdom became very, very weak, and it was under the control of the Muslims, as called Madurai Sultanate. But Madurai Sultanate was a little too far away from the southern kingdom. During that time, the Vijayanagara kingdom took advantage, and the Vijayanagara Empire extended its influence in the Tamil country. So the Pandya region came under the control of Vijayanagara through its governors. Okay, the Nayakas. We will learn about the Vijayanagara Empire too later on. So I hope this is clear. The decline of the Pandyas, the decline of the Pandyas in the 14th century. Okay, the first reason was the conflict among the Pandya princes. The second was Malik Kafur's campaign. Okay, was one of the governors. Malik Kafur was one of the governors of Alauddin Khilji of the Khilji dynasty, and he plundered Madurai, carried away immense wealth, and after which the Pandyas came to be known as Madurai Sultanate, ruled by the Delhi Sultanate. But it was a little too difficult for the Delhi Sultanate to control Madurai because it was way too far away from the main stronghold, Delhi. And it was taken advantage of by the Vijayanagara Empire, and the Vijayanagara Empire took control over the Pandya region. Okay, one by one, little by little. Aste Pandya kingdom almost sok Vijayanagara Empire la pitori ai jeshe. Is that clear? I hope this is clear. The Pandya. Now, rise of the Pallavas. This is the second kingdom. The third kingdom, actually. After the Kalabhras, we started the Pandyas. Now we have the rise of the Pallavas. Now let's just, for a recap, let's just move back. Okay. So, Sangam age ended 300 BC to 3rd century CE. After 3rd century CE, we studied the Kalabhras, the Dark Age. Okay, lack of evidence. And after the end of the Kalabhras, we have the Pallavas. The Pallavas mark the end of the Kalabhras, and the Kalabhras continued to rule till 9th century. Okay, but I also added another section. Okay, then the Pandyas came 16th to 14th century, and then the Imperial Cholas came 9th to 13th century. Okay, I will not confuse you guys too much. Now, after the Pallavas, we will study about the Pandyas. Okay. After the Pandyas, we will study about the Pallavas. Sorry. Now, rise of the Pallavas, the origin and early history. The Pallavas were one of the most important dynasties of the early medieval South. So this is how the Pallava kingdom looked like. Originally, the region was between the Eastern Ghats and the Bay of Bengal. Okay, the Pallavas, and we have also talked about the Cholas, Cheras, and the Pandyas. If you guys remember, one kingdom was divided here, one kingdom was divided there, another kingdom was divided here. The Cheras between Western Ghats and the Arabian Sea, and then the Cholas between the Eastern Ghats and then the Bay of Bengal. So if you look at the Pallava kingdom, okay, the main stronghold was the territories that the Chola kingdom once formerly had. Okay, that's how you can relate one kingdom to another. Chola la area takishe, uti Chela la area takishe, uti Pandya la area takishe na. First, three early Tamil kingdoms, 3rd century BC to 3rd century AD la time there. Now, when we talk about the rise of the Pallavas, we're talking about Tondai Mandalam. Okay, this is a region where they resided. This is Tondai Mandalam, and the major center was Kanchipuram. Now, Tondai Mandalam isn't a city. Okay, it's a region. Okay, it's a region. It's a very large region, and they call it Tondai Mandalam. And the main center was Kanchipuram. Okay, the main city of the Pallavas, Kanchipuram. The Cholas, Patami, Pandyas, Madurai. Okay, remember the cities, the Pandyas, Madurai, and now we have the Pallavas, whose main center was Kanchipuram. Okay. Now, after the decline of the Kalabhras rule, new dynasties emerged, right? The Pallavas as well as the Pandyas. And we talked about the Pandyas extending their kingdom upon Sri Lanka, all the maritime trades. And during the same period, the Pallavas too extended the control. Okay. Now, the early Pallavas are known from inscriptions, coins, and literary sources. The names of early rulers such as Skanda Varman, Vishnu Kopa, which we will learn about in the later slides. Among the kings, Sima Vishnu is regarded as the real founder of the Pallava power. Okay, you will learn about that as well in the next following slides. So, this is the geographical base. This is what you need to know. Tondai Mandalam, the core region of the Pallavas. The major center is Kanchipuram. Okay, their popular king is Sima Vishnu. Okay, this is all that you need to know about the Pallavas. And another very important kingdom, the Kela Sanata temple in Kanchipuram, which is a masterpiece of Pallava architecture. Now you can see that Sima Vishnu is considered to be the real founder of the Pallava kingdom, the Pallava power. Before that, he had his predecessors, but they were not too powerful. They were not too ambitious. So it was Sima Vishnu that actually consolidated power in the hands of the Pallavas. He expanded the kingdom and brought stability. He defeated the Kalabhras and other local rulers. As you can see, in towards the south, in the South India, the southern part of India was controlled by the Pandyas, and a little above the Pandyas were controlled by the Pallavas. So the Kalabhra kingdom was divided between the Pandyas and the Pallavas. Okay, he defeated the Kalabhras and other local rulers and established their kingdom in the Tondanadam region. And next we have Mahindra Varman. He is also one of the greatest Pallava rulers. He was initially a Jain and later became a Shaivite, which means Jainism follow kodakshe or Hindu hoijeshe. Okay, this is another very important point about Mahindra Varman I. Okay, which Pallava king was initially a Jain and later became a Shaivite. Mahendravarman I. Okay. He is also the author of Mata Vilasa Brahasana, which is a Sanskrit play. Another very important point about Mahendravarman. And after Mahendravarman came Narasimhavarman I. Okay, he is also known as Mamala. That's also another very important term about Narasimhavarman. He is the greatest conqueror of the Pallavas. Why is he the greatest conqueror of the Pallavas? He is a king among the Pallavas that defeated a lot of other popular kings. He defeated the Chalukya king Pulakesin II. If you read about Pulakesin II, you will understand how powerful he was. Okay, he was the one king that gave a very very bad defeat against Harshavardhana. Harshavardhana lost against Pulakesin II. You will learn about that later on. Pulakesin II was a very, very strong ruler, and to defeat Pulakesin II, it would have taken Narasimhavarman I an enormous amount of money, wealth, military power, military tactics. Okay, so it's a very big thing that Narasimhavarman I defeated the Chalukya king Pulakesin II, and he captured Vatapi, or in other words, Batami, Chalukyas of Batami. I talked about the Chalukyas of Batami, Chalukyas, and the capital called Batami. Okay, they had three capitals between three different periods: the Chalukyas of Batami, the Chalukyas of Vengi, Kalyani, then Vengi. So these were the three capitals. But the first capital was Batami, and the ruler of the Chalukya king at the time was Pulakesin II. Narasimhavarman captured Batami and assumed the title Vatapi Konta. Okay, these are the facts that you need to memorize. He captured Batami and assumed the title Vatapi Konta. Okay, he is a great builder of Mahabalipuram, which you will learn about that later. Now, this king is not too important. This king is important. Okay, Narasimhavarman II. Why is he important? For this, Gelasanata temple at Kanchipuram is another very important temple of the Pallavas, which was built by Narasimhavarman II. Okay, one of the longest ruling Pallava kings was Nandivarman II. Okay, but nothing much to study about here. So the three kings, the four kings that you need to know is Sima Vishnu. Okay, the reason why he's important is because he established the Pallava kingdom. He's the real founder of the Pallava kingdom. He defeated the Kalabhras, and Mahendravarman is important because he is the author of the Sanskrit play Mata Vilasa Prahasena, and he was initially a Jain and later became a Shaivite. Okay, Shiva, worship Shiva. These are the two facts that are important for Mahendravarman. For Narasimhavarman I, he is also known as Mamala. He is the greatest conqueror. Why? He defeated the Chalukya king Pulakesin II, and he captured the city of Batami, okay, the capital of the Chalukyas, and assumed the title Vatapi Konta. Okay, and we will learn about the city, the great builder of. He is also known as the great builder of Mahabalipuram. Okay, these are the facts that you need to know. Paramesvaravarman, important name. Narasimhavarman II, important as a. Why? Because he built the Kailasanatha temple at Kanchipuram. I think these facts are clear. So these are the facts that you need to learn about all these kings. The rest of the kings, the rest of the facts, not necessary to memorize. If ever in the exam you don't get through, okay, it will be because you forgot all these basic facts. It's always about forgetting those basic facts. Exam, no one's gonna expect you to score 200 out of 200. In our time, the past four prelims, in my first prelims, I scored 109. In my second, I scored 113. In my third, I scored 106. And last year, I scored 93. Okay, in my first, when I scored 111, the cutoff was around 88. And in my second, when I scored 113, the cutoff was around 97. And after that, I scored 106 the year when I got through And when I got the job, the cutoff was, I'm talking about general, the general cutoff was 100, okay? And last year when I got 93, the cutoff was 72 for the generals, and for the PT, maybe minus plus 10, okay? So no one's going to expect you to score 200 out of 200. And the questions are not set in such a way that you are supposed to score 200 out of 200. You can never, and it's better not to try to score the entire 200. After 200, the questions that you are sure about, let's just say, let's just forget the new pattern. Let's talk about the old pattern. There are 200 questions. Out of these 200 questions, you will likely know hardly 90 to 100 questions with 100% accuracy. The rest, elimination method, guesses, and that's how you reach 110, 115. That's always been the case for all the students. So don't feel demoralized. Don't feel disappointed in yourself, okay? Everyone struggles, and even us, we get worried, will I get through prelims, but then we get through because we study the basics. We cover the basics. Don't miss out on the basics. Out of 200 questions, even me, I'm not sure about 100 questions. I'm never sure about 100 questions. Sometimes even current affairs, I would study Indologos, I would study Pratakita Tarban, Vision IS, and still, there were 50 questions, okay? There were 50 current affairs questions back in the year 2022, and I was able to answer only 3 after covering Vision, Insight, as well as Pratakita Tarban and Indologos, all these 4. So sometimes you may run out of luck this way. But why did I get through every single time? Because there was this basic to back me up. Nah. So as long as you have the basics to back you up, you will get through. Very much possible with the right basics, you will get through. So I'll only focus on the basics. I can give you guys all the contents, okay? But I'm only trying to give you guys the ones that you shouldn't miss, the ones that are considered basic. So these are the basics about the Pallava kings: Sima Vishnu, Mahendra Varman, Narasimha Varman, and then Narasimha Varman II, who was also known as Raja Sima. And that's it. That's it about the Pallava kings. Now, the rise of the Pallavas. When we talk about the Pallavas, okay, we're still in the Pallava phase. Okay, we talked about the origin. Okay, we talked about the early history. They defeated Sima Vishnu, defeated the Kalabhras, and then they established the kingdom here. Originally, there would be somewhere between the Eastern Ghats and the Bay of Bengal. Okay, Eastern Ghats and the Bay of Bengal. Eastern Ghats is a group of mountains. Okay, in Utu area there's a western means Utu area there's a, and they affect the wind patterns and everything, which you will learn about in geography. So we know about how the Pallavas originated, right? They defeated the Kalabhras, and then Sima Vishnu founded the Pallava dynasty, and after that came Mahendra Varman, Narasimha Varman I, II, and then later on they declined. Now if you look at it, the Pallava Chalukya conflict needed a very special slide, which is why I've given you guys this slide to help you guys understand the conflict between the Chalukyas and then the Pallavas. I talked about Pulakeshin II, right, being defeated by Narasimha Varman. But before Pulakeshin II, before the Pallavas defeated the Chalukyas once defeated the Pallavas. Okay, you will see that here. And one defeated the other multiple times. Okay, they defeated each other, and sometimes the Chalukyas would control the Pallavas, sometimes the Pallavas will control the Chalukyas. Please take a look at it. After the decline of the Kalabhras, the Pallavas rose in the North Tamil country. We saw that. In the Deccan, the Western Chalukyas, central part of India, the Deccan Peninsula, the Western Chalukyas under Pulakeshin II emerged as a powerful kingdom with its capital at Vatapi or Patami. Okay, the more common word is Patami, but classical books of Indian history, such as such as R.S. Sharma, they use the term Vatapi. So you should memorize both these two terms. They might use either of these terms. So Pulakeshin II launched a campaign against the Pallavas. Okay, he invaded Pallava territories. Now this is the Chalukya king who invaded the Pallava territories. The Chalukya king who invaded the Pallava territories, Mahendra Varman I, defended his kingdom. Okay, defended his kingdom but suffered territorial loss temporarily. Okay, some of the territories of the Pallavas were taken away by the Chalukyas. And now Narasimha Varman won. Okay, son of Mahindra Varman. Now Mahindra Varman lost against Pulakeshin, right? He was able to defend, but he lost a lot of his territories temporarily. Now Mahindra Varman, the son of Narasimha Varman I, the son of Mahindra Varman, prepared for a counter attack. Okay, at Mola Jaga Matikile Luce. Now he would go on to fight against Pulakeshin II. He reorganized the army and he built a very strong navy. Navy to the side Hodona, Taichon battle. He defeated Pulakeshin II in a very decisive battle. He captured Patami, their capital, Patami, the Chalukya capital, and he assumed the title Vatapi Konta, conqueror of Vatapi. Okay, now you know why the term Vatapi is used. It's an ancient term, but the more modern term is Patami. But you must memorize both these two terms, okay? Vatapi as well as Patami. Now they call it Patami, but if you look at the title, Vatapi Konta, so you know that it's a classical term for Patami, okay? So this victory of the Pallavas over the Chalukyas established Pallava supremacy in the south and checked Chalukya expansion. The Chalukyas were no longer able to expand towards the south, okay? And what happened after that? What happened after Narasimha I defeated Pulakeshin II? What happened after that? After the victory of Narasimha I, the Pallavas held the upper hand for some time. However, the struggle continued between the two dynasties for influence over Vengi. I talked about the Chalukyas of Vengi. Right? The next would be Vengi, their capital. Okay, Andhra region towards the east, the coastal area, and other border regions. Their conflicts shaped the political history of South India for nearly 2 centuries. They continue to fight against each other. And if, for example, the Pallava kingdom defeated the Chalukyas, then they would also impose their religious beliefs, their culture, their tradition upon the Chalukya kingdom. And if the Chalukya kingdom wins, again, they would impose their rules and regulations. So one culture influences the other. Okay? If you talk about English literature, it's a combination of influences from different parts of the world. We have the Scandinavian influence, the Vikings, right, when they invaded England, and then they introduced the culture, and then which is why some of the Viking words and terms are used in English even to this day. And we also have William the Conqueror of France, who invaded England in the year 1066, and he introduced the French language, and eventually the English and the French, they merged together. So English language itself is shaped by many languages. We also have the Germanic influence and other influences, okay? The English language is even influenced by the Hindi language as well. We have the term chutney in the dictionary, okay? So whereas other terms adopted from Hindi. So similarly, one culture influenced the other, and that's how South India was shaped by all these battles. So this is the battle of the Pallavas and the Chalukyas, a very important battle. Next, we move on to their architecture, the architecture of the Pallavas, okay, and Malapuram. Now, if you look at the evolution of the Pallava architecture, first they had the rock-cut face of Mahindra Varman I. Okay, so rock-cut caves are these caves. Actual pathor dangor itade cave panala muchasna. So that was Mahindra Varman I, and we also have the monolithic or sculptural face of Narasimha II. Okay, of Narasimha I, sorry. This is the development of monolithic and open air sculptures. Okay, now if you look at this monolithic, mono means single kanna, and then if you look at open air, we do open air as well. A magnificent open air bas relief. Bas relief is any kind of sculpture that's made on a plain wall. It is attached to the wall. not independent in and of itself. It is not outside the wall. Okay, it is sculpted on the wall. That's called bas relief. So you can see the elephant, right? The sculpture of the elephant. This is called bas relief. Okay, so these are important. The Pancha Rathas, the 5 chariots, Arjuna's penance, descent of the Ganga. This is known as Arjuna's penance. And we also have the Shore temple in South India dedicated to Shiva and Vishnu of Narasimha Varman I. And Varaha Mandapa and Krishna Mandapa, these are famous caves. So Mandakapatu cave, Mahendravati cave of Mahendra Varma I, and Narasimha Varman I, we have the Malapuram, and these are the 4. Okay, monolith Pancharathas, Arjuna's penance, Shore temples, cave temples, and Mandavas. And we also have the structural temple face, proper structure of Narasimha II. Okay, Gela Sanata temple, which we talked about earlier. And we also have the Vaikunta Perumal temple in Kanchipuram. These are the 2 temples that you need to memorize when it comes to Narasimha Varman II. And Narasimha Varman II is also known as Rajasimha. Okay, their nicknames are also mentioned. And Mahalapuram is the glory of Narasimha Varman I. Okay, who is also known as Mamala. So the features of the Pallava architecture, they use granite and hard stones. Okay, a development from rock cut to structural temples. We have seen that evolution, right, from one king to another. Eventually, cave te tarek uto piside utuan aro wall de na ina hoigina last day structural temples kan ulai shido. So we see the evolution. And next we have the features of the Pallava architecture. The top, okay, utu top te shikara goide or vimana, okay, or utu middle part tedo mandapa, and then base tedo adhisthana. Okay, research on that is very interesting. The features of the Pallava architecture. Usually what they would ask you is the top, the tip of the temple of the Pallava architecture is known as Shikara. And the base of the temple of the Pallava architecture is known as Adhisthana. Okay, these are the 2 terms. Mandapa not too important, but Shikara and Adhisthana very, 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 very much important. Now, the rise of the Pallavas. In the rise of the Pallavas, this is just a topic. Okay, this is just a topic. The Pallavas, religion, literature, decline, and legacy. Now, religion, they were promoters of Hinduism. Okay, and the Pallava period, very important, very important. The Pallava period saw the growth of Bhakti movement in Tamil country. Bhakti movement. Okay, now this was a Bhakti movement. The Nayanars and Alvars lived and composed devotional hymns. Now, who were the Nayanars and Alvars? They were Tamil poets and saints, okay, in South India, who led the early Bhakti movement between 6th to 9th centuries. Now we learn about the Vedic age. We learn about, they don't consider it actual Hinduism, but let's say the Vedic age was the age of Hinduism in the sense that the scriptures were written at that time, the Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda, and the Atharva Veda, the 4 Vedas. And if you look at the Vedic culture, if you look at early Brahmanical traditions, it was very rigid. We also saw the rise of caste system, right? And we also saw that women were not allowed in the assemblies, and women were burned alongside their husband when they died. Sati system. I told you guys that Sati system is a modern, misinterpretation of the actual writing in the Vedas. The Vedas just say that the woman, when the husband dies, they should stand on the altar, not fire. But some of the scholars, they misinterpreted it and they wrote it as fire, which is a justification given by the Hindus of today's world. Should we believe or should we not believe? That's up to you guys, okay? But we know that Hinduism during the ancient period, before this period, before the 6th century period, it was a little rigid, and which is why those philosophical religions came up, right? Buddhism and Jainism. They were more liberal, they were more forgiving, but Hindu, it was very strict. They had the Varna system and so forth. Now, if you look at the Bhakti movement, okay, the Bhakti movement is a Hindu movement that went against this rigidity. And this Bhakti movement, the most important feature was the social inclusion. Okay, both the Nayanars and the Alvars, they were Tamil poets and saints that formed the group, which was known as the Bhakti movement, to revolutionize the Hindu religion. Okay, so the Alvars were devoted to Vishnu, and the Nayanars were devoted to Shiva. Okay, there were 12 traditional Alvars and 63 Nayanars. Okay, Nayanar saints. So 12 Alvar saints and 63 Nayanar saints. These groups welcome people from all castes. Hinduism, Varna system asido. To revive Hinduism, called Bhakti movement, 6th to 9th century, they welcomed both women and men. They welcomed even the Shudras, the Chandalas, the lower classes. Back then, only the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, they could recite the Vedas, they could learn the Vedas. But now even Shudras could come, enjoy the Hindu religion. Okay, that was the revival of the Hindu religion. And this Hinduism is very akin to the Hinduism that we know now today. Now they no longer practice the caste Varna system. Okay, they no longer practice the Varna system. It's almost non-existent. There are still discriminations and stereotypes and stigmatization, which we also have in our Naga society. It's natural in every society. But by and large, we have done away with the Varna system. So, uto Bhakti movement bra itala present Hinduism do, uto bra improve, uto Bhakti movement la revival of Hinduism led to the Hinduism that we know now today. Okay, so now. They also went against exaggerated rituals as well. Okay, and they also removed the necessity of intermediaries, meaning it is only through sadhu babas that we can gain, connection with God. As long as we are devoted, the Nayanars and the Alvar saints, they say that as long as we are devoted, we can have a deep emotional bonding with our God. We do not need those middlemen, those intermediaries. Okay. So it's more like the Christian religion, right? These Nayanars and Alvars, they completely transformed the Hindu religion, the Brahmanical religion, the Brahmanical tradition of that time. Okay, so it was during the during the Pallava period that Nayanars and Alvars, the Bhakti movement emerged. Okay. Now, this I have explained earlier. We don't need to know that. Nayanars, devotional Tamil hymns by Nayanars and Alvars, Tamil literature. Now, decline of the Pallavas. Okay, so we talked about the Pallavas. We talked about Narasimha Varman defeating Pulakesin II. Okay, we talked about everything. We talked about the rise of Nayanars and Alvars, but how did the Pallavas decline? Okay, how did the Pallavas decline? From 8th century onwards, the Pallava power gradually weakened. Continuous war with the Pandyas, the Rashtrakutas. Rashtrakutas is also another kingdom that we will be studying later on. Okay, you will be studying about the tripartite struggle. The tripartite struggle is a struggle between three kingdoms, and you will study about the tripartite struggle later on. Now, the Palas, Pratiharas, and the Rashtrakutas. Okay, these were the three kingdoms that were constantly in battle against each other for the control of a city called Ujjain, which we will learn about later. So the Pandyas were often attacked by the Rashtrakutas and drained their resources. Okay, and there was also this rise of powerful feudatories. Okay, feudal lords. We talked about that in our earlier classes. The Cholas again grew strong under Vijayalaya. Now comes the Cholas. Okay. By the late 9th century, Pallava political power came to an end. The Pallavas disappeared as a ruling power, but the cultural and agricultural legacy lived on. Okay. So this is a summary. The Pallavas rose in Tondai Mandalam after the Kalabhras. This is a fact. Major rulers: Sima Vishnu, Mahendra Varman I, Narasimha I. Mahendra Varman I lost against Pulakesin. 2. Mahendra Varman defeated him. We talked about Narasimha I and his various architecture, and we talked about Nandivarman II, which is not important. Narasimha I, Narasimha II, Mahendravarman I, Simhavishnu II. These are, and we also saw the defeated Pulakesin II, and then Narasimha captured Vatapi or Batami, and he assumed the title Vatapi Konka, which is known as the conqueror of Vatapi. Okay, the Pallava decline paved the way for the rise of the imperial Cholas. So, the rise of the imperial Cholas. Now you all of you can are connecting, right? I hope all of you are connecting. See, we completed the Sangam age, and then we went on to the Kalabhras. Okay, I'm making it a little too messy. Then we switched to the Pallavas. Then we switched to, after the end of the Kalabhras came the two important kingdoms, the Pallavas and the Pandyas, right? Now, after the decline of the Pandyas, emerged the imperial Cholas, okay? So, Chola was also one of the three early Tamil kingdoms, the Cholas, Cheras and Pandyas. The Pandyas, they revived in 3rd and 9th centuries, right? And then there was this imperial stage of 13th and 14th centuries. And we also saw the Pandyas, right? And, we saw the Pandyas, the 6th to 9th century and 13th to 14th centuries. Then we saw the Pallavas just now, 3rd to 9th century. Now we will move to imperial Cholas. Okay, is that clear? Okay, we will move to imperial Cholas. The reason why I always go back to the chronology is because it helps us structure. Okay, if I just explain to you guys the kingdoms, you guys will not know where to place it, which date, which century. So it's always important to connect all the kingdoms, study chronologically. Now, this is the rise of the Cholas. Okay, now after the decline of the Pallavas and the weakness of the Pandyas in the 9th century, the Cholas emerged as the most powerful dynasty in the south. Now we took a look at Pallavas. Just now we saw that the Pallava dynasty lasted from 6th century to 9th century, and the Pandyas that came right after the Kalabhras, their rule lasted from 6th century all the way till 9th century, and then they revived in the 13th and 14th centuries, and they were taken away over by the Delhi Sultanate, right? The Delhi Sultanate, the Khilji dynasty, the Alauddin Khilji sent his governor Malik Kafur to conquer the Pandyas, and he conquered Madurai. He looted wealth from there. But then the South India and North India, because of the distance, the Delhi Sultanate could not control the Pandyas, and Vijayanagara Empire took advantage of it and then conquered the Pandyas. That happened, right, in the 13th and 14th century. But what happened in the 9th century? 13th and 14th century Delhi Sultanate Aishe, but Pandyas kan 9th century decline. It was because of the rise of the Cholas. Okay, so this is where the Cholas come in. In the 9th century, the Cholas emerged as the most powerful dynasty in South India. They transformed from local chiefs of the Kaveri Delta. This is the Kaveri Delta. This is the Kaveri River. Okay. Kaveri Delta. Their rise was very gradual. It wasn't immediate. Okay. Their rise was gradual and systematic through able leadership and effective administration. This is another very beautiful and important temple, Brihadiswara temple, built by Tanjavur, at Tanjavur, built by Raja Chola. Now, if you look at the chronology of the kings, we have first Vijayalaya Chola. Now remember, the Chola Empire initially existed between 300 BC to 300 AD. It ended, the Kalabhras came, and the Chola Empire became almost non-existent. And in the 9th century, 850 CE, Vijayalaya Chola founded the imperial Chola Empire. Okay? He took control of Tanjavur from the Muttarayars and established Tanjavur as his capital. We shall take a look at. Yeah, this is Tanjavur. Aditya I, he extended Chola influence in the Kaveri Delta, Utufane, and he destroyed the Pallavas and pushed the frontier up the river Penar. He married into the Pallava royal family. Nothing much to study here. To confuse you, Parandaka I, the real builder of Chola power, he defeated the Pandyas and expanded Chola. Please read with me, okay? Please read with me. He conquered northern Sri Lanka. The most important fact is he won the battle of Takolam against the Rashtrakutas. Although he suffered a setback, he won the battle of Takolam against the Rashtrakutas. Parandaka I. This is the important point. And Vijayalaya Chola, the founder of Imperial Chola line. Okay, so these are the few important points about the kings. Now, the focus when it comes to Chola Empire isn't about the kings. Like I said, it was a very gradual rise, and yeah, it was through diplomatic relations mostly. They did wage war against other kingdoms, but they used the brain mostly. Okay, the most important about the Cholas, when we study about Cholas, it would be art and architecture. Art and architecture. We will focus on art and architecture. Most of the questions will be based on art and architecture. All you need to know is that the Kaveri River was their lifeline. That's the Kaveri River. Okay, and the capital was Tanjavur here, which is located here. And these are the kingdoms. Vijayalaya founded the Imperial Chola Empire. He took control of Tanjavur from the Mutarayas. Okay, and Aditya I, he extended Chola influence in the Kaveri Delta, and he married into the Pallava royal family. Okay, and Parandaka, he won the battle of Takolam. These are some basic facts that you need to know about the rulers, and that's it. Now, the important ones, the important rulers, Raja Chola and Rajendra Chola. Next, we will learn about Rajendra Chola, and there we will learn about Raja Chola. So these kings are not too important, the basic facts that I've told you, but you need to study about the art and architecture of Raja Chola as well as Rajendra Chola and whatever they achieved. Okay, so after these three kings came Raja Chola. If you can see, as you can see, he ascended the throne in 985 CE or 985 AE. He was a brilliant administrator, able military leader, and patron of art, architecture, and learning. These are the titles, okay? Mumuti Chola, Raja, Sivapata Sekara. These are the titles of Raja Chola. Now, he defeated the Pandyas and brought them under Chola control. The Pandyas were situated here. He conquered Kerala, the Chera country, up to the Venad region. This is Kerala. Okay, the Kerala that we know now today was predominantly Chera kingdom. Okay, he conquered Kerala, the Chera country, up to the Venad region. Now he conquered Pandya, the Pandya era. He overcame the remaining Pallava territories. These were the Pallava territories, including Kanchipuram. Okay, Kanchipuram was the capital of the Pallavas. Imagine, he defeated the Pandyas, he conquered Kerala, the Chera country, and he also overcame the remaining Pallava territories. He bought, and yeah, this is not important. Sri Lanka, he also captured Sri Lanka. Okay, and this is a very important point. He appointed his son Rajendra as the viceroy of the Chola Lanka. Okay, this was called Chola Lanka. Now this is a very important temple of Raja Chola. He built the magnificent Brihadeswara temple, which is also known as Raja Rajeshwaram. Okay, so this is a masterpiece of Dravidian architecture. Dravidian architecture is the architecture of South India. Okay, now this temple, the significance of this temple is it is a symbol of his devotion to Lord Shiva and royal glory. It is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So as you can see, he followed the Brahmanical religion. Okay, the Brahmanical religion. Now, the empire was divided into. You can research on that: mandalams, valanatus, natus, and villages. Okay, province, district, sub-district, and villages. Okay. Navy we have already discussed about the navy in South India, similar for the Cholas. And yeah, that's it. The most important is the Brihadiswara temple. Now about Rajendra Chola. He was the son and successor of Rajaraja Chola, who was made the Viceroy of Cholalanka. Okay. Now he succeeded Rajaraja Chola. He ascended the throne in 1012 CE, coronation in 1014 CE. He inherited a strong empire and expanded it to its greatest extent. Now, another advice that I would like to give you guys is, if you look at the Chola Empire, it's very difficult to memorize all the date and time and all that. So what you can do is you can just memorize the century, the date on which the first ruler ascended, as well as the date on which they declined. Okay, this is how I memorize. And as long as we have that memorized, if they ask you any question, and out of these 4 dates, if these 4 dates are very near, you will not be able to answer. But if these 4 dates are not too near, too close to each other, then you can differentiate. Oh, it was within that area, within that period. Okay. Usually they wouldn't ask you about the dates of when the kings ruled. I have never come across that question. But what I have come across is the dates of the battles. But even the battles, not from ancient India, usually from either modern India or medieval, like the first battle of Panipat, second battle of Panipat, the battle of Plassey, battle of Buxar. Okay, these are the dates you need to memorize. So for the dates of these kings, it's not too necessary for us to memorize. Okay, you can make do even without. And supposing in the preliminary examination, a lot of the questions are going to be statement based. They're not going to ask you which king ruled on which date and so forth, right? And in the maths examination, there's no MCQ, there's only answer writing, so you'll never need dates. Too many dates, okay? Too many dates, especially the dates of South Indian rulers. South Indian rulers. Okay. Now Rajaraja Chola, he built the magnificent Brihadiswara temple. Rajendra Chola, he founded a new capital called Konkaikunda Cholapuram. Again, this grand temple, Konkaikunda Cholapuram, this is dedicated to Lord Shiva, a very important architectural piece of Rajendra Chola. Okay, the temple reflects the glory of Chola art and architecture. Now, the new capital symbolized the victory over North and the Ganga. So, if you look at Rajendra Chola 1, okay, if you look at Rajendra Chola 1, he earned the titles Konkaikunda Chola, Kataram Kondan, Mumuti Chola. Okay, these are the titles that you need to memorize. And if you look at the northern expedition to the Ganges or the Ganga, that's the Ganga River, and we have Patliputra somewhere around here, right? If you guys remember, Bihar, he launched a northern expedition to establish Chola supremacy. He defeated the rulers of Kalinga, okay, Utkala and Venki. This is Venki, controlled by the Chalukyas. He defeated the powerful Pala ruler Mahipala. He reached the river Ganga, this is river Ganga, and brought back its holy water. And then earned the title Konkaikunda Chola. Okay, the one who took the Ganga. So interesting, right? Such a nice narrative for a king. Okay, so Rajendra Chola was the greatest king of the Cholas, and he founded a new capital, Konkaikunda Cholapuram, which symbolized the victory over the north and the Ganga, right? He conquered the Pala kingdom of the north. So this is a symbol of his victory. Okay. Now, another naval expedition to Southeast Asia that you guys need to memorize. He attacked and conquered the Srivijaya Empire, Kataram, in Southeast Asia. Now, this is the Srivijaya Empire, okay, in Southeast Asia. He conquered the Srivijaya Empire as well. So even outside of the Indian subcontinent, he conquered this part of the Southeast Asia. And this is another important point. Now, this is all that you need to know about Rajendra Chola. So if you take a look at the Cholas administration and local self-government, the king was known as Chakravartin, the supreme authority, and he was assisted by council of ministers, the departments, Perum, Kuram, well-defined departments. The departments were called Perum Kuram, the officials including Athikaris or Kanakars, accountants. All this you can memorize those terms. I will not be explaining that. And the province was divided into, was known as Mandalam, which was divided into Valanatu, Natu district, Kuram, Kotaram, sub-district, village, basic unit. Okay, so I will skip that as well. And the general village, Ur, was known as the, there were three different classifications. Okay, Ur, Sabha, and Nagaram. This is another very important classification during the Chola period. Ur is the general village assembly, and Sabha is a collection of only the Brahmins. Okay, only the Brahmins. So if you look at the caste system, the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, Brahmins, these are holy people. Assembly of Brahmins, very rich people and very highly respected and holy people. So this assembly of Brahmins were called Sabha or Mahasabha. Okay, the Ur would be the general village assembly where everyone can gather, composed of all households, represented non-Brahmin sections, met to discuss common village affairs. Okay, so that's Ur. And Sabha means only the Brahmins. Okay, they manage the land, revenue, irrigation, justice, temples, education, and charity. In a nutshell, they manage the polity and economy of the village. And Nagaram is a merchant guild or town assembly. Okay, merchant guild. I talked about guild, right? A community of specialized workers. Represented merchants and traders, looked after trade affairs, market, taxes, and commerce. So Nagaram was a kind of like a commercial body, and Sabha was a body of Brahmins, and Ur means the general village assembly. So these are the three distinctions you should make when it comes to local self-government during the Chola dynasty. Okay. So another inscription, important inscription, is the Uttara Meru inscription and the Kutai Valai system. So as you can see, the Uttara Meru inscription provide detailed information about the functioning of the Sabha. Okay, Ur, Sabha, Nagaram. The Kutai Valai system, ballot method was used to elect committee members fairly. So in the functioning of the Sabha, the assembly, the ballot method was used, known as Kutai Valai. Okay, so they might ask you about the Kutai Valai system, and you can answer that it was a ballot method used to elect members of the Sabha. Okay, committee members of the Sabha. So these were the eligibility criteria which you will not be asked, but age between 35 to 70, on land, Vedic learning or knowledge in scripture. I'm talking about Sabha, okay, the Brahmins. Good conduct and honesty, must have paid taxes, not related to defaults or criminals. So they had very good law and order, right? So again, land classification. Wet land would be Nanse, Punse, Manavari, Deva, Dana, Brahmadeya. Okay, well-developed irrigation system with tanks, canals, and wells. The Chola administration was efficient, systematic, and far-reaching. Local self-government institutions were democratic and people-oriented. We have seen that, Ur, Sabha, and Nagaram. It was considered a golden example of decentralization in medieval India. Now, if you look at the Chola Empire, they might ask you in the option that the Chola Empire was a highly centralized administrative system. It was not, okay? Unlike the Delhi Sultanate, unlike the Magadhas, the Mauryans, the Chola Empire was not a centralized, highly centralized administrative system. In fact, it was a decentralized system in which local self-government was encouraged, okay? Now that's Imperial Cholas, the economy, society, religion, art, and architecture. Our art and architecture, we have seen the Kongagunda Cholapuram, Priyadeswara temple, and so forth. Religion, Shaivism and Vaishnavism, the Bhakti movement, right? Which influenced the Cholas as well. The Nayanars and Alvars. The Nayanars would be worshippers of Shiva, Alvars would be worshippers of Vishnu, okay? Now, the society, It was based on Varna and the Jati system. As you can see, the kings were uh, followed the Brahmanical tradition, and there was a division of Ur, Sabha, and Nagaram. Sabha only belonged to the first class, the highest class, the Brahmins. So there was this caste system during the Chola period, okay, and the Brahmins enjoyed high status and received land grants, okay. Agriculture, trade and crafts, and temple-related services flourished. Women enjoyed a relatively higher status, although there was this Varna system. There's evidence of women donors and officials. Okay. Education, temples and mathas were centers of learning, and it is said that when it comes to social structure, the occupational system, the Jati system, and the Varna system, it was more about, it was not on discriminatory lines. It was more based on the roles and responsibilities that each person must have in a society when it comes to Varna system. Okay, the Brahmins are meant to be worshippers, they're meant to be saints, they're meant to, provide information and conduct rituals, whereas the Kshatriyas were meant to be good soldiers, go to war. Vaishyas were meant to be good traders and merchants and improve the overall economy of the country, and then the Shudras were meant to be helpers, to assist, to guide, and so forth. Okay, so it was more about roles and responsibilities than it was about, one being touchable and one being untouchable during the Chola economy, during the Chola period. Okay, now I think trade and commerce, nothing much to you will see the ports. These are the 4 ports that are important. Merchant guilds, I talked about guilds, right? An organization of specialized workers, and these are two are the important guilds: Anuruvar, Nanathesis, Manikramam, and volunteers. I would also encourage you guys to memorize this and research on this as well. Okay, so agriculture was the backbone of the Chola economy. The fertile Kaveri Delta was very well developed, and they built extensive irrigation system, tanks, canals. The Kanalai, Grand Anikat on the river Kaveri. I don't know if you guys remember this. We have talked about this in our previous class. Kongkakunda. These are the 3 temples: the Priyadeswara of Raja Chola, the Kangakunda of Rajendra Chola, Kangakunda Cholapuram, Kangakunda Choliswaram temple. These are the 2 temples of Rajendra Chola. Every time you see Kankai Konta, anything related to Kankai Konta is Rajendra Chola, because he was the one who conquered the Kanga region, right? And Eravateswara temple of Tasasuram, Raja II, okay, which came later. So this is all that you need to know. And how did the Cholas decline? By the way, today we will not be having any mock tests, okay? So I have around 4 to 5 slides, and then we'll wrap up today's session. Now this is the decline of the Chola Empire. This is the decline of they decline in the early 13th century. They started in the 9th century, right? They started in the 9th century. Vijayalaya founded the Imperial Chola Empire. It went on and on and on. Then we had Raja Chola, then we have Rajendra Chola I, Rajendra Chola II, and so forth. And then lastly it ended in the 13th century. Okay, so this is the chronology of later Cholas: Kulotungka, Raja II, Raja Thiraja, Kulotungka III, and the decline and end of Chola independence in early 13th century. Okay. Now, succession and disputes after Rajendra I. Okay, Rajendra Chola, and constant wars with the Pandyas. We talked about the Pandyas. We talked about Western Chalukyas. We will also talk about the Hoysalas tomorrow. Okay, and rise of the later Pandyas under Chatavarman Suntara Pandya. Okay, this was also one of the reasons for the decline of the Cholas. Okay, the Chatavarman Suntara Pandya I. This is another king of the later Pandyas that conquered the territories of the Cholas. Okay, and loss of control over powerful and vassal states. Okay, there were some feudal lords. There were some territories who were loyal to their respective regional chiefs, and these chiefs, they lost control over these chiefs and over these provinces eventually. Okay, economic strength due to continuous warfare and maintenance of a large navy. They maintain a very large navy, and so economic reasons was also one of the causes. So these are the causes which you can go through by yourself. And later Cholas, there was this another phase of the Cholas that we right now we saw the 9th century Cholas. The first Cholas were the Cholas of the Tamilakam, the Cholas, Cheras, and Pandya's of 300 BC to 380. Then came the Imperial Chola Empire in the 9th century, and in 11th and 12th century we see the later Cholas. Okay, they ruled with a much reduced territory. These are the important rulers, and they try to maintain power but face constant threats. And the center of power gradually shifted from Tanjavur, and by early 13th century the Chola Empire lost its independence, and the Pandyas emerged as the dominant power in South India in the 13th century. And what happened to the Pandyas? They were later on attacked by the Delhi Sultanate, right? The Pandyas were later on attacked by the Delhi Sultanate, and after which the Vijayanagara Empire took advantage of the control of the Delhi Sultanate over the Pandyas. Do you guys remember? Yeah, we discussed about the Pandyas that rose to power in the 13th and 14th century. It was during that time that again they completely crushed the Cholas. Okay, so I hope you guys can relate the Cholas, the Pandyas, and so forth. Now, yeah, for other regional powers of South India, we will